under the wide, fiercely blue sky of Texas in 1873, where the sun blazed relentlessly over the sprawling plains, there lay a town that had forgotten the tapestry of its own humanity. The town was a small enclave in a vast wilderness, nestled amidst the echoes of a wild west that sung of opportunities and often whispered of dangers. It was in this environment that Aiyana, a young woman of striking presence, found herself at a crossroads between two worlds, singing melodies that could weave time and space with their haunting beauty. Aiyana was the daughter of a respected Apache chief, a man whose wisdom had guided his people through times of prosperity and turmoil. Her heritage was a testament to a culture that valued the earth, its rhythms, and the stories carried by the wind. Yet, in the saloon where she performed, adorned with worn-out boots and long skirts that swung with every step, Aiyana was just a singer, an entertainment for the miners, cowboys, and drifters who would drown their day's labor in the tang of cheap whiskey. The saloon was a cacophony of rowdy voices, the constant clink of glasses, and sporadic laughter that echoed off wooden walls. Against this backdrop, Aiyana's voice soared, a lonesome phoenix in search of an understanding soul. Her songs were embroidered with the vibrancy of Apache traditions, each note a testament to her roots and her unwavering resilience in the face of adversity. But to many, she was merely a half-breed, a term whispered with disdain, cutting through the music like a scalpel through flesh. The term was a stain on their tongues, branding her as an outsider, someone who straddled the line between the conquering settlers and the original stewards of the land. It was a cruel dismissal that pained Aiyana every time. Yet her spirit remained unbroken, a testament to her father's teachings and the legacy she was to carry forward. As she sang, her eyes scanned the room, meeting the gaze of listeners who were momentarily enchanted by the depth of her performance. Their faces were rugged, philosophies etched in wrinkles and scars, revealing narratives of hardship and endurance. In those fleeting moments, she captured their essence, echoing their triumphs, failures, love, and longing. But when the song ended, the moment passed, and they returned to their drinks and conversations, leaving Aiyana alone once more on her musical pedestal. Her isolation was profound, a sense of otherness that wrapped itself around her like the arid desert wind. Yet every note that escaped her lips was a rebellious cry, a declaration that she was more than their prejudice, more than their ignorance. They were her audience, and she was their storyteller. Within her melodies were the echoes of campfires and ceremonies, the wailing of eagles, and the whispers of the ancient spirits guiding her. Aiyana's solitude was her muse, a powerful force that drove her to string together tales of love, loss, and endurance. Her mother had once explained how songs held unparalleled power, capable of capturing life's fleeting moments and immortalizing them. It was a lesson she cherished, invoking it every time her hands brushed against the strings of her lute, pouring herself into the music with every breath. Her presence was undeniable, her impact indelible. Despite the whispers and judgments, Aiyana's performances painted the evening in hues of longing and nostalgia, etching her name into the hearts of those willing to listen. Though many sought to overlook her heritage, her voice was a constant reminder of a culture resilient and richer culture that refused to be silenced, no matter the odds. And thus, Aiyana, the saloon singer with an indomitable spirit, navigated her days of harmony and heartache with grace. Her journey was far from over, and the stage she graced was but the beginning of a melody unsung, charting a path through adversity that would soon crescendo into the annals of legend. In the vast, indifferent wilderness, Aiyana's song was an unyielding force, a forgotten melody waiting to be rediscovered and revered for generations to come. The dusty air of the saloon hung heavy with the scent of whiskey and tobacco, mingling with the soft strains of a piano tinkling in the corner. It was a place of refuge for wanderers, cowboys weary from the trail, and those who sought escape from the relentless sun that scorched the Texas plains. Among them was Aiyana, her presence as striking and enigmatic as the painted deserts of her ancestors. Each evening, with resolve born of necessity, she stood upon the makeshift stage, a beacon in the dimly lit room. Her eyes, deep pools reflecting the untamed spirit of the West, held tales long untold. But it was her voice, haunting, ethereal sound, that captured and ensnared those who dared to listen. It wove through the discord of clinking glasses and rustling card decks, with a purity that compelled attention, even from those who begrudged her existence. As her fingers caressed the strings of the guitar cradled in her arms, the saloon transformed through her songs. She spoke of her heart's deepest emotions, articulating what many could not voice themselves. She sang of loves lost to time and space, of wars waged, and lives indelibly changed. Each note a tribute to her Apache lineage, a history scorched into the soul of the land. But beyond the melody, there was an undercurrent of despair, a bitterness that seeped from old wounds. To the townsfolk, she was a half-breed, an outsider forever caught between two worlds. They sat in their chairs, stiff with prejudice, nursing a mistrust as old as the hills. Yet Aiyana sang on, her voice undiminished by their disdain. One sultry evening, as dusk painted the sky in shades of indigo and crimson, a new face entered the saloon. He was a young cowboy with sun-bleached hair, his eyes the color of the prairie sky. He settled at a corner table, silent and apart, watching her with an intensity that was at odds with the room's simmering indifference. Aiyana felt his gaze like a warmth on her skin, igniting something within her, her kindling of hope that someone, at least, truly listened. Encouraged, she poured her soul into her next song, a lament for the homeland her people had cherished and lost. Her voice trembled with the weight of untold generations, each note a bead of memory strung together in a melody as infinite as the stars. As the final chord echoed into silence, a hush fell over the room, darker than the shadowed corners of the saloon. It was broken only by the quiet sound of the young cowboy's applause, a solitary acknowledgement that cut through the night like a knife. The townsfolk eyed him with suspicion, heads turning like cattle sensing an unseen predator. The cowboy approached her after the crowd had thinned, his boots stirring the sawdust on the floor. "They don't deserve your song," he said, his voice soft and edged with the harshness of truth. "But it does something. It stirs even the stonest heart." Aiyana met his gaze, gratitude mingling with caution. "Music is the language of our soul," she replied. "Its power is woven from truths not yet spoken." In him, she found a kindred spirit, someone who understood the power and pain of being caught between two worlds. Each evening, he returned, drawn repeatedly to the balm of her music, and Aiyana found herself drawn to the hope he offered, a flicker against the encroaching darkness. Yet, not all hearts could be changed by the beauty of song. Resentment brewed among the town's more hardened residents, a festering wound that refused to heal. Whispers followed Aiyana wherever she went, their venomous words an omnipresent threat. A wall of hatred seemed insurmountable, a constant reminder of the prejudice embedded in the land. It was under these simmering tensions that Aiyana received word of her father's death. The news, a jagged shard, that cut her to the quick. Alone in the wilderness, he had been ambushed, his life stolen by the greed of those who sought to claim his home as their own. The saloon's familiar confines became a cage, the faces around her, masks of indifference or silent condemnation. Even the young cowboy, a steadfast ally, could not shield her from the community's quiet ostracism. As the grief threatened to swallow her whole, Aiyana turned to the only source of solace she knew, her music. Her voice, once tender and poignant, now hardened, each note sharpened by the fire of her loss. She sang with the fury of a storm unleashed, tales of injustice and the restless spirits of her ancestors seeking retribution. But beneath it all lay a plea for peace, an aching hope that humanity could aspire to greater things. The townsfolk, lulled by the routine of their ignorance, found themselves unsettled. Her music pricked at their conscience, tiny seeds of doubt woven into the fabric of their night. While some turned away, unable or unwilling to face their reflection, others began to hesitate, the narratives they'd long believed slowly unraveling. Harmony and heartache wove together in those long nights in the saloon, each song a relentless push against an unyielding tide. And when dawn broke across the plains, it found Aiyana standing, a beacon rooted in her heritage, unbent by the storm. In the crucible of prejudice and pain, she forged a path forward, guided by the whispers of her forebears and the undeniable truth of her song. Her journey was far from over, but with each chord she played, each word she sang, Aiyana paved the way for change, a legacy of resilience and courage that would outshine even the darkest of nights. The sun hung low, casting long shadows across the dusty plains of Texas. Aiyana stood at the edge of her village, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the memories of her father seemed to dwell. The air was tinged with the faint scent of mesquite, and the distant howl of a coyote broke the silencer, lament echoing the sorrow in Aiyana's heart. Her father had been a stalwart figure, a pillar of wisdom and strength. As the chief of their Apache tribe, he had taught her the values of courage, honor, and the sacredness of their ancestral land. His voice, deep and resonant, used to harmonize with hers in the evenings, singing old songs that spoke of their heritage and the eternal spirit of their people. But now, those songs were hers to sing alone. It had been just months since the ruthless gang, led by a man named Carson, cast their greedy eyes upon the fertile tribal lands. Their threats were initially met with firm resistance from Aiyana's father and the tribe. Yet, the town's indifference was evident. To the townsfolk, the plight of the Indians was not their concern. Over time, the gang's visits became more frequent, their demands more aggressive, and their presence a stain upon the once peaceful land. One fateful afternoon, Aiyana returned from the saloon to find the village eerily silent. Her heart pounded as she called out for her father, her voice swallowed by the oppressive stillness. Faces of the villagers mirrored her dread, their eyes lowered in shared grief. Her steps quickened, and she found herself at the sacred circle, where her father's body lay. The earth seemed to hold its breath as Aiyana knelt beside him, her mind refusing to accept what her eyes saw. Her father's lifeless form was a stark reminder of the brutality that had seeped into their lives. The gang had made good on their threats, and the town had done nothing to stop them. As she sat there, cradling his head in her lap, a flood of memories washed over her, the nights spent under the stars, his gentle laughter, and the stories he told of their ancestors. A single tear traced its path down her cheek, landing amidst the dust, as she whispered a silent farewell. In the days that followed, Aiyana's despair hung heavy like the summer heat. She wandered the plains, guided by a pain that cut deeper than any wound. Her songs at the saloon now carried an edge of melancholy that silenced the rowdiest of patrons, leaving a solemn hush in their wake. Yet within her, a transformation was brewing. The loss of her father, the apathy of the town, and the encroaching threat to her home hardened her grief into resolve. Her mourning turned into something fierce and unyielding, a call to arms that resonated in the echoes of her heart. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Aiyana returned to the sacred circle. The rifle that had belonged to her father was now hers to wield. Kneeling once more upon the sacred earth, she made her vow to protect her people, to honor her father's sacrifice, and to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. Her voice, stronger than it had ever been, sang beneath the canopy of the starlit sky. This was a new song, one of defiance, of courage, of an unbroken spirit, standing tall against the encroaching darkness. It was a battle cry, calling upon the spirits of her ancestors for guidance and strength. Determination etched into her soul, Aiyana rose from her knees, her heart forging a path toward the inevitable confrontation with the marauders. Alone, yet surrounded by the spirits of her kin, she moved forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. In Aiyana's heart, silent farewells transformed into songs of resilience, notes that lingered in the dusty Texas air, promising that her father's legacy would not be forgotten, that every sacrifice would someday find justice, and that Aiyana, daughter of the Apache chief, would ensure their story was sung for generations to come. In the fading glow of a crimson sunset, the Texan plains lay beneath an endless sky, their vastness stretching beyond the horizon. Yet, amidst this sweeping landscape stood a lone figure, a woman with eyes as fierce as the sun itself, a heart pounding with the resolve of countless generations. Her name was Aiyana, and today, the echoes of the past called her to arms. As night draped its dark veil over the earth, Aiyana sat before the modest fire outside her home, her father's rifle resting across her knees. The crackling flames mirrored the tempest inside her, a storm, born of loss and love, grief and rage. Memories interwove with the shadows, thoughts drifting back to the world she once knew, now ravaged by loss. In the hazy recollection of her childhood, Aiyana remembered her father, a chief with a presence as indomitable as the mountains. His laughter echoed in the wind, a melody of comfort and strength. It was he who taught her the age-old songs, the ballads of their ancestors that flowed in their very veins like an innate rhythm, the heartbeats of a people who refused to be forgotten. The day the marauding gang descended upon their land was forever etched in her mind. The chaos, the cries, the finality of her father's silent fall were visions she could not shake. The townsfolk, blinded by indifference and prejudice, stood by, their apathy a thorn deep within her heart. She saw only the cold calculations of greed in their eyes, a refusal to acknowledge the injustice befalling her kin. But despair was not a companion Aiyana would embrace for long. As dawn dared to break through the night's grasp, she prepared herself for the battle ahead. She was her father's daughter, and though she stood alone, she carried with her the strength of her ancestors, the songs of her people whispering courage into her ear. Her preparations were shrouded in the gentle light of a new day. With meticulous care, she cleaned and loaded her father's rifle, its cold weight a poignant reminder of her resolve. The ritual was almost sacred, a silent prayer sent skyward to those who came before her. As she made her way through the plains, the ground firm beneath her feet, Aiyana was acutely aware of the song resonating within her soul. It was no longer a plaintive melody. Instead, it surged with the resolution of what must be done. The hum of cicadas accompanied her steady steps, nature itself bearing witness to her solitary march. When she reached the outlaw camp, the morning mists had just begun to lift, unveiling a day rife with consequence. The air was charged, every element poised for conflict. Hiding within the cover of thick brush, she took a moment to survey the foemen engrossed in their ill-gotten land, a false sense of ownership bespeaking their ignorance. Drawing a deep breath, Aiyana stepped into the clearing. Her presence alone was enough to draw their attention, a vision of flame and purpose. As startled eyes turned toward her, she channeled every emotion, every tear unshed, into a singular crier, haunting melody that carried across the open land. It was a song that spoke of defiance, of a legacy unwilling to die, of a spirit unbroken. The first shot fired was not hers, but it was a catalyst igniting the symphony of battle. Each note of her song was punctuated by gunfire, the lullaby of peace slowly transitioning into the roar of resistance. Aiyana danced through the chaos, an apparition driven by a force greater than vengeance. Her aim was true, guided by an unseen hand, perhaps her father's, watching with pride from the other side. Fall they did, one by one, like autumn leaves touched by the breath of change. The marauders, once fearless in their numbers, now found themselves as fragile as dried husks under the crushing inevitability of her determination. And as the last echoes of conflict faded, Aiyana stood amidst the silence, the peace hard-won and bittersweet. Those who could still flee would undoubtedly spread the tale. A wild songstress, a warrior of song and spirit, unable to be tamed by the greed and hatred of mankind. In the following days, the town awoke from its slumber of ignorance. Eyes opened to the truth, voiced by Aiyana's songer, truth that could no longer be ignored. The prejudice that had once tainted the air began to dissipate, replaced by a reluctant recognition of the bravery displayed by the chief's daughter. Her resolve had etched a new melody into the land, a legacy of justice that would endure. Though the memory of her father remained a shadow cast over her heart, she found solace in the knowledge that he had not died in vain. His teachings, his stories, the spirit of their people, these were now forever immortalized in the last song of Aiyana, a hauntingly beautiful anthem of the Wild West's untamed heart. And so, her tale lived on, an unwritten chapter in the annals of history, a powerful reminder of a woman's unwavering fight to reclaim her birthright, a melody as eternal as the land itself. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, painting the dusty skies of Texas with hues of orange and pink, Aiyana stood poised and unwavering at the edge of her tribal land. From this sacred soil, she had drawn strength, and now it called her to arms against those who had shattered her world and silenced her father's voice. Her heart pounded like a war drum within her chest, each beat resonating with the stories and songs of her ancestors. The day was still, as though the world itself held its breath alongside her, waiting for the tide of battle. She drew in a deep and steady breath, letting the cool morning air fill her lungs, her resolve unshakable. The memory of her father was vivid in her mind, his silhouette outlined against the dying light on evenings when he would weave stories of their people, tales of bravery, of earth and sky, of laughter and of loss. His wisdom had been boundless, his strength a guiding star. And though his physical presence was now absent, Aiyana felt him beside her at this moment, as real as the rifle she grasped. The land around her was eerily quiet, the calm before the storm. Slowly, the silence gave way to the distant thundering of hooves, the approach of the marauders who sought to claim what was never theirs. Aiyana's hand tightened round the rifle, her expression set with determination. With each step the gang took, she whispered a part of her soul into the world around her, a lament and a prayer woven into song, a haunting melody that drifted over the plains carried by the wind to reach the ears of those who remembered the old ways. Her voice rose and fell, fluctuating between sorrow for what had been lost and a fervent power determined to protect what remained. The marauders, led by a man with a cruel smile etched onto his rugged face, rode into view. They were a motley crew, draped in dust and shadows, laughter devoid of warmth as their eyes settled on Aiyana, dismissive in their confidence. Yet as their horses slowed and the echoes of her song reached them, an unmistakable air of unease crept in. Aiyana stood tall, the morning sun casting her in a golden aura, transforming her into a legendary figure, the woman warrior who stood defiant against overwhelming odds. Her heart echoed with her song, a blend of ancestral pain and the promise of retribution. As the marauders dismounted and drew their weapons, she felt her fear meld with purpose. Today, she fought not just for her father or tribe, but for justice that had been long denied. The confrontation unfurled in a blur of motion and sound, her song unwavering and wild. She moved through the battle like a whisper on the wind, every pull of the trigger synchronized with the rhythm of her melody. The men who sought to overpower her found themselves entranced and confused, their movements slowing as if the very air had thickened with Aiyana's will. Bullets ripped through the morning air, but so too did the notes of her song, each one a clarion call to remember, to resist, to rise above. The battle was fierce, and though she was alone, Aiyana fought with the strength of many. Her father's rifle was an extension of the dream to protect what had been entrusted to their care, each shot a testament to her unwavering love. As the sun ascended, the marauders found themselves at odds with both Aiyana's spirit and their failing courage. Her melody showed no signs of ceasing, becoming louder and more profound, spiraling into the heavens as if calling upon the very forces of nature to stand witness. Piece by piece, Aiyana's resolve chipped away at their bravado. Some began to retreat, abandoning their ill-gotten ambitions to the dust of the plains. For those who remained, there was no triumph, only the realization that they had underestimated the power of one woman's spirit and song. As the last of the marauders fled, defeated by a force they could neither see nor comprehend, Aiyana's song lingered, a final note of victory that resonated across the land. It was a song of survival, of spirit unbroken, and it would echo in the heart of the townspeople who had once looked down upon her. They would speak of the day a woman warrior stood her ground, and in doing so, Aiyana awakened a consciousness that had lain dormant. With the battle won, Aiyana stood alone in the aftermath, her song softened into a gentle requiem. She looked out over the land that had been fought for and saved, the dust settling where blood and valor had intertwined. And so, the legend of Aiyana, the last song, became etched in the melodies of time. It was a tale not just of defiance, but of change, leaving an indelible mark on Texas folklore, a remembrance that even in the Wild West, the harmony of a single voice could bring about transformation. Aiyana's story, a luminous beacon of hope and resilience, would be remembered far beyond the dusty plains she called home. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the Texas sky in shades of fiery orange and purple. As the shadows lengthened, the town of Elmsworth gathered around the dusty square, drawn by a solemn purpose. In the center stood a weathered statue of Aiyana, etched with time yet standing tall, her figure eternally poised with a rifle in one hand and a songbook in the other. Her story had become an integral part of the town's fabric, whispered among the townsfolk and recounted in vivid detail at gatherings. For many, Aiyana was more than just a memory. She was a symbol of resilience, a testament to the power of the human spirit. Elder Leah, whose voice carried the steady cadence of one who had lived through many seasons, began the remembrance ceremony. A descendant of the townsfolk who had once stood indifferent, her words were now a bridge between past and present. We are here today to honor Aiyana, whose spirit breathes within these plains. She faced injustices, yet ignited the flame of change. Leah spoke, her voice a mixture of reverence and pride. The words resonated deeply, casting their spell over those gathered, reminding them of a time when fear and ignorance nearly smothered humanity. The story of Aiyana was not just one of vengeance, but of transformation. After the clash with the marauders, the townspeople were forced to reckon with the cruelty they had turned a blind eye to for far too long. Aiyana's courage in the heat of battle broke the chains of their prejudices, compelling them to view her people with newfound respect. Jacob, the town blacksmith, was one of the first to advocate for change. Once indifferent, his heart had stirred watching Aiyana fight, not just with bullets, but with a song that spoke to the soul. "We must do better," Jacob implored during a meeting at the town hall, his deep voice echoing in the expectant silence. Aiyana fought for more than her land. She fought for our conscience. His plea ignited conversations that had long been hushed, inspiring the community to extend an olive branch to the Apache and other marginalized groups. Programs were created to foster understanding and respect, slowly knitting the divided community back together. Among those affected was young Samuel, the son of the sheriff who had once dismissed Aiyana's plight. Samuel was drawn to her story of bravery, a spark within him urging him to learn more about the culture his forebears had overlooked. He spent time with the Apache, learning their traditions, their history, and became a liaison between the two worlds. One day, while exploring the old trails that wove through the plains, Samuel stumbled upon an overgrown clearing where Aiyana used to sing. Captivated by the tranquility, he envisioned a sanctuary, a place where stories and songs could intertwine, celebrating the legacy of Aiyana and her people. Driven by this vision, Samuel rallied the town to transform the clearing into a memorial garden. The effort was a collaboration, symbolic of the newfound unity amongst the townsfolk. Together, they cleared the land and built a small amphitheater where voices could rise into the vast sky, unfettered. As years passed, the garden became more than a memorial. It was a place of learning and healing. Every spring, townsfolk and Apache gathered for the Festival of Voices, where songs and stories echoed through the air. This vibrant cultural exchange honored not only Aiyana, but sought to mend past wounds with every note, every word spoken. One memorable festival saw elder Leah and Samuel, now a man wise beyond his years, perform a duet, a mix of English and Apache, weaving a new tapestry of unity. As their voices soared, listeners closed their eyes, feeling Aiyana's presence in every chord, reminding them of the beauty found in diversity and understanding. As the community healed, the story of Aiyana continued to travel beyond the borders of Elmsworth, into the hearts of those seeking hope in dark times. Writers penned her tale, musicians composed symphonies inspired by her resilience, artists captured her unyielding spirit on canvas. In a poignant tribute, the Texas Historical Society declared Aiyana's battle site a state historical landmark, ensuring her legacy would endure for generations. Visitors came from far and wide, growing more curious about the hauntingly beautiful melody she left behind. Her story, once confined to the memory of those who knew her, now soared like a phoenix, a beacon lighting the path for those striving to right the wrongs of the past. Back in Elmsworth, the sun had set completely, and a gentle breeze wove through the crowd gathered around Aiyana's statue. Elder Leah concluded the ceremony. Aiyana's song lives within each of us, urging us to embrace love over fear, understanding over ignorance. Let us carry her legacy forward, entwining her courage with our daily lives. As the townsfolk began to disperse, a sense of hope lingered in the air. The last song of Aiyana was no longer just a melody, but a living testament to the enduring spirit of a woman who dared to dream of harmony amidst discord. In her wake, a forgotten tale was resurrected into a legacy that sang on forever.